So, something really significant just happened. And I feel like that I have to be the one to address it. And I know you're probably thinking to yourself, there are so many different issues that are so important that we need to discuss. And yeah, you're right. There's no way around it. But at the end of the day, if you just give me a moment here, I promise you this information is going to be important for you. It's important for us. We're going to talk about headless guitars and why you probably should own one. So in a past video, I mentioned that I have sold and or will be selling a lot of my guitar collection, most of my guitar collection. And I told you that I would explain which guitars I was keeping and why if you guys were interested and you all were interested. So I plan on making that video soon. But in order for me to explain to you which guitars I'm keeping and why, I first have to talk about my latest kind of thing. And simply put, I just believe that headless guitars are best for most people. And if not for most people, they're certainly best for me. And so in this video, I'm going to start by just giving you a little bit of a history of me with headless guitars because it's almost been 10 years that I've been experimenting with them. I guess it's really closer to 8 years, but eight's close to 10. Anyway, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of my history, why I bought them at certain times, why I didn't like them at certain times, and so on. And afterward, I will explain to you why I think you should consider a headless guitar, what it's great for, why, in my opinion, they're going to be better for most people, at least right now. And so, if you don't care about my story with headless guitars, you can always just jump forward to that section, follow the timestamps, and so on. By the way, welcome back to the Guitar Craft Other Stuff podcast, and I'm your host, Andre Flood. And for those of you who have been here for a while, let me know in the comments if and why you appreciate this particular setup. That's how I'll know you're like, I don't know, that you've been listening for a while. So this all started for me, at least in 2016. And at that point in my guitar journey, I was traveling a lot. Now, not traveling to different countries, but I live in Jersey City, New Jersey. For those of you who don't know, that is like 10 minutes away from New York City. So I was traveling a lot from my city in New Jersey to Brooklyn, to Manhattan, to Harlem, and so on, because I was spending a lot of time learning from a lot of different guitar players, going to different music classes in general when I was doing my PhD, working at different nonprofit organizations. And so basically, I wanted the ability to have a guitar that I can quickly just get on a train, get on two trains, get on a bus and two trains, etc., carry on my back all day and not have it be a big, cumbersome thing. Prior to this, I spent a lot of time playing archtop guitars and traveling with a 16-inch archtop guitar on trains and buses in the hard shell case, up and down stairs. It's crazy. It's craziness. And so this was also around the time that Kiesel really started pushing their headless models. And it was their Vader 6 at the time that was really popular. It might have been their only headless model. And in 2016, you can spec out a Vader 6 headless guitar for like $1,200, which is insane by today's standards because the quality is crazy. Stainless steel frets, the whole thing. And so I spec'd out a Vader 6. And that was, for me, the first time that I really spec'd out a headless guitar that I was interested in. So I got the Vader 6. The first one I tried was multi-scale because that's also when multi-scale was getting really, really big. So like I got it as a spec. I immediately disliked it, returned it because Kiesel, they're great with the returns. And I spec'd out another Vader with straight frets, hard bridge, so no tremolo. In fact, their tremolo model might not have even been available yet. But yeah, I got that guitar in like 2016, maybe 2017, early 2017. And I loved it. I played it all the time. The quality was amazing. And a couple years later, I got another Vader, this time with a tremolo, vibrato bridge for the sticklers. And so from 2016 to really 2020, I pretty much exclusively played Vader guitars. Again, both headless models, the Kiesel Vader. I had a hardtail and I had a tremolo version. So for my purposes at the time, again, the only thing that I cared about was having a compact, lightweight, high quality guitar that I can get on trains with, buses with, up and down stairs, carry on my back all day long, all of that stuff. That's what I cared most about. And at that point, the Vader was perfect for me for that situation. So now we're going to jump forward to 2020. So from 2016 up until 2020, it was mostly those two Kiesel Vaders. And in 2020, something significant happened around the world. I'm sure you know what it was. And everything for my life went remote. All of the interviews I was doing for my PhD went remote. All of the guitar lessons that I was doing, they all went remote. And so slowly but surely as time went by, I stopped needing to use a headless guitar because I was just staying home. I was mostly sitting and doing lessons from different people and giving lessons and so on. And by that point, because I'm a guitar player, I got the itch to try more guitars. And again, if you were playing guitar during this time, you know the used market was insane because everyone was home doing nothing. And we just decided to buy and sell a bunch of guitars. And so I sold all of my Vaders and I started this deep period of experimenting with Parkers and VGAs and Godin and every brand you could think of, Ibanez, Schecter. I bought and sold pretty much every guitar brand you can imagine between 2020 and 2020, we'll say 3 or so. And then I started the YouTube channel. I believe it was 2022, a couple of years ago now. And the one guitar that I hadn't really tried during this time period was Strandberg guitars. And the reason I didn't try Strandberg guitars during this kind of experimental phase was because I went to a Guitar Center. I went to Guitar Center on 14th Street in Manhattan, for those of you who know. I picked up a Strandberg. I sat down with it one time, and I was like, this neck feels stupid. And I put it down, and I'm just like, good. Like, this is off my bucket list. I don't need to buy one. I don't need to try one for any more time. It doesn't feel right to me. I'm not interested in adjusting. Very close-minded. So I did that. And then, the end of 2022 rolls around. I have the YouTube channel, and I get the idea that it would be fun for me to kind of get a Strandberg and try it and document it for a while and kind of give my impressions on it. And if I'm being honest, the first time I got this idea, I thought to myself, I already know I hate the way this guitar feels. So it would be interesting to document my feelings about it, if they change, can they change, and so on. But I'll be honest, the first initial thought, if I'm remembering this correctly, was that this is going to be funny because I'm going to explain how gimmicky and stupid this whole thing is. And so then I ordered a Strandberg, and this is before the experiment had started. I just want to kind of feel it again in my own house and, see what it felt like. I ordered one. I played it for a couple of days, and I got really intrigued by it differently now. The guitar that you enjoy is going to depend heavily on where you are in your musical journey, where you are in your life, and all of that stuff. And I was really in this big ergonomics fix during that time, which I wasn't as much concerned about, when I was trying the other guitars before. And it just so happened that Strandberg at that moment in my life was the right thing and it clicked in a different way. And so I did the Strandberg experiment, as some of you may have saw on the YouTube channel. And I really fell in love with Strandberg guitars, and I also re-fell in love with headless guitars in general. So now we're talking about late 2020, early 2023, up until mid 2023. So I was playing Strandbergs for, 7, 8, 9 months straight. Of course, I was playing other guitars in between to do reviews and whatnot, but my main guitar that I loved, in addition to, of course, my collection, was my primary Strandberg guitar, which was a Bowden Fusion neck through. And then, the thing that changed next was that I finally got to try a Klein guitar. For those of you who don't know, a Klein guitar is another ergonomic guitar that is designed to be played when seated over your right leg and creates a nice neck angle for you. This is a bucket list guitar for me. And so, again, at this point in my life, I spent most of my time sitting to play the guitar, which the Strandberg is great for. But the Klein guitar is equally good for sitting, if not better, slightly better. And the one that I had a headstock. I can tune it quick. It just felt like a different thing. It was still ergonomic. It felt right at the time. And so I sold all my Strandbergs again, all my headless guitars, and I started just exploring guitars solely based on ergonomics. So that's when I, played the Klein. I got the Bossy Concepts ME6, and so on. So now we're talking about the second half of 2023. I love the Klein guitar. I love the Bossy Concepts ME6. And I basically run into an issue, a health ailment, very small one, but long story short, I got a type of hip impingement. We won't talk about why it happened or how it happened or the exact diagnosis, because that's a whole different story. But what this hip issue meant was that I could not sit down like I'm sitting right now for you. I could not sit down like this for an extended period of time without getting extremely uncomfortable and my leg going numb and having issues in my left leg. And so suddenly I was forced to have to stand a lot for my practice, if not for most of my practice. And even before then, I had been, and I always recommend that students, if you're practicing for a long time, you should sit and stand and kind of change your position at different times. But I'll be honest, if I was practicing for 3 hours that day, probably 2.5 hours of it would be seated, maybe 30 minutes would be standing. And then I'd spend 4 or 5 hours editing videos or writing scripts for YouTube or doing research, and it will all be seated. And so being forced to stand up and practice guitar for a long time automatically disqualified a lot of guitars from things that I would necessarily be interested in. Because now, one of the most important things for me became having a guitar be lightweight. And so I'm going to say from late 2023 up until now, when we're late 2024, the last year, I'll say, one of my biggest concerns with guitars has been, in addition to the overall ergonomics for seated and standing playing, also the weight of the instrument. And that's how we kind of get to my point today, that headless guitars are just going to be better for a lot of people. And I have a few different categories of reasons why they're going to be better for a lot of people. The first thing that I want to talk about, let me just refer to my list here. So the first thing that I want to talk about is overall comfort. And let me explain what I mean by comfort. The first thing in terms of comfort is navigating the entire guitar neck. Now, I still haven't figured out why this is the case. I'm going to have to do some measurements and some math and consult some other people to figure this out. But something that I noticed is that when you're playing a headless guitar, these nice compact bodies, I'll pick up my Strandberg for those of you watching, just to demonstrate this point here. When you have a compact guitar, it's just a bit easier to navigate the full guitar neck. So you can get from the first fret all the way to the last fret, and it feels like you barely have to move your arm to do so. And again, I don't understand why this is, because the scale length is exactly the same as a regular guitar, but it just so happens that you have to move your hand less, your arm less, your shoulder, your elbow less to navigate the full neck on a headless guitar. And that's the first point of comfort that I want to talk about, because what it feels like to me is that it just feels like you kind of start to merge with the instrument in a very unique way that I rarely get with other guitars that I love. In fact, you know what it reminds me of? There's a movie from 2018 called Annihilation. Pretty good movie, not great, but good enough. That same director's last movie was much better. And I love movies, by the way. We should talk movies sometimes. But point being, and spoiler alert, you can jump forward like 3 minutes. I won't be talking about this for longer than that. But spoiler alert for the movie Annihilation. The basic idea of this movie is that there is this weird biological alien thing. And it's kind of like this whimsical looking forest, but it actually sucks in all the organic things around it, like the trees and humans, animals. If you go into this forest, it basically sucks you in and takes over your body and organic material. For those of you into sci-fi, this doesn't sound strange to you at all, because this is the theme of many sci-fi books and movies. But if you're not into sci-fi, it sounds very strange. I'll bring it back to guitar in a second. By the way, when I saw this movie in theaters, it was a great, great moment. It was my birthday weekend. The night before, I had an entire Pizza Hut stuffed crust pizza with chicken and onions and peppers on top. And then I had a whole bag of M&Ms. And then we woke up, me and my now fiance. We went to see this in the morning after having some bagels, really good bagels. Anyway, great time. So there's this moment in the movie Annihilation where they send in this crew of scientists and military people to figure out what the hell is happening in this weird biological alien forest thing. And Tessa Thompson, the actress Tessa Thompson, she's part of the group. And the forest takes her over. But right before it does, she kind of has this moment of clarity where she's like, oh, as it's taking over her body, she kind of goes I understand. This is beautiful. This is how it's supposed to be. And then she kind of merges with the forest in this crazy way. And that's how I feel about headless guitars. When you have the guitar close to you and you can navigate the entire neck, at first it's kind of weird. It's kind of alien-like. But then you find yourself just kind of merging with it in this weird eureka moment, like a sci-fi movie from 2018. Okay, back to non-sci-fi stuff. I still love a lot of other guitars. And spoiler alert, every guitar that I'm keeping is not headless. But there's just something very unique about having a compact body against you and having this compact design and it just being able to flow through the entire guitar. The same also applies to your right hand. It just feels like that you're tight and you're really close to it in an intimate way that can't really be replicated with other guitars. And so as I'm in this next phase of my guitar playing, which is largely me developing different methods for teaching different aspects of guitar, like chords and legato playing and all types of stuff. You'll see it soon on oneguitarcourse.com. But as I'm entering this next phase of exploring the instrument and really getting deep into it, the idea of navigating the entire neck is really important to me. The idea of visualizing the entire neck is very important to me. And for some reason, I just have an easier time visualizing and connecting with the whole neck on a headless guitar. So that's the first aspect of comfort that I wanted to talk about here. Now, the next part of comfort is really all tied to my use of the instrument. And that is for long sessions of guitar. I spend at least the first 2 hours of my day practicing guitar. Oftentimes, it's the first 3 or even 3.5 to 4 hours of my day. So as a quick example, it's 10:42 a.m. right now when I'm recording this video. I got out of bed at 5:30. I was in this room by 6, and I was on the guitar from 6 until 10. Yeah, 6 until 10. And so, and by the way, that's just this first practice session. Obviously, throughout the day, when I'm making course materials, I have my guitar in my hand. When I'm doing anything musical, I like to have my guitar near me because, a lot of people think about music theory from the aspect of a piano, but I think about music theory from the aspect of a guitar. So being able to quickly just grab my instrument, make little chord shapes, make little scale patterns in my mind and with my hand, it helps me work through music theory ideas more efficiently. And so if we go back to the practice session thing, if you're playing guitar for more than 30 minutes, I highly, highly recommend that you that you move through different postures. I'm going to do a whole video on this really soon. But if you're playing guitar for more than 30 minutes, don't spend the entire time seated. And I also don't think you should spend the entire time standing. If you're playing guitar for 2 or 3 hours a day, or even just 1 hour a day, I feel like every 15 minutes or so, you should switch from seated to standing to different positions and so on. And this is going to be the best way to ensure you don't get any type of auxiliary kind of overuse, repetitive motion kind of injuries in the rest of your body. The hands, that's one thing, right? But as I learned because of my hip issue, you can get other repetitive motion injuries just from sitting too long. Or if you're standing with a heavy guitar for 4 hours a day practicing, you will get repetitive motion injuries just from your back, from holding it up. And excuse me, those might not be technically called repetitive motion injuries, but point being, if you sit for too long, you can get hip issues. If you stand for too long with a heavy guitar on your back, you can and will get back issues. Just ask any old school gigging musician. They all have their back issue stories. And so for me, spending many, many hours a day with the guitar, I need to be able to sit and stand and sit and stand all day long. Now, for the moments that I'm standing, it just feels nicer to have a lighter weight instrument. I could probably stand for several hours with a guitar that weighs 6.5 pounds. That's still very lightweight in the guitar world. But if I'm going to have to stand, it would be more fun to stand with something that's more lightweight. Let's just put it this way. Let's say you're on vacation, you're traveling, you're doing your little walking tours of a European country if you're American, or if you're from a different country, you're doing a walking tour of New York City. And you might walk for 3 or 4 hours that day. Could you walk for 3 or 4 hours with a book bag that has 2 textbooks in the bag? Yes. Physically speaking, I'm sure everyone watching has the ability to do that. But would your walk be a lot more enjoyable if you only had 1 magazine in your book bag instead of 2 textbooks? Yes, it would be. And I think of it in a similar way. For every ounce, For every pound we can shave off of the weight of the guitar, it just makes it that more comfortable to stand up and play it. So, in terms of weight, it's going to be hard to find a guitar with a headstock and a full body that's as lightweight as a headless guitar like a Strandberg. And not every headless guitar is very lightweight, but Strandbergs are. And the ones that I'm interested in, the headless guitars I'm interested in, are all lightweight. That's a major reason why I'm interested in them. So we have comfort in the sense that you're comfortable navigating the entire neck in a very comfortable way. We have comfort in the sense of being able to stand for a long period of time because it's lightweight. And then we have comfort in terms of your neck angle. So I'm not going to harp on this for too long because I spent a lot of time talking about this in a lot of different videos. But when you stand and play the guitar, the neck is roughly 45 degrees, not exactly, give or take, depending on what you like. So you're standing up, that way is comfortable. But then when you sit down, the neck goes straight across and it becomes a lot less comfortable, or maybe not less comfortable for you, but it does become different. That's the word I should be using. Some people like to playing the guitar this way, whether it's straight across on one leg, that's totally fine. But my point here is that if you have a traditional guitar, how you stand with the guitar and play versus how you sit with the guitar and play is going to be a bit different unless you adjust your body to the instrument. And when it comes to playing guitar for a long period of time, sitting, standing up, sitting, standing up, I don't want to have to change myself to adjust to the instrument. I want the instrument to just be in the background. I want it to meld into me like I mentioned earlier. And so in that case, it would be great if we had the same posture seated as we do standing. And of course, with the Strandberg guitar, we can do that because you can sit with it with the neck at roughly 45 degrees because of the shape of the body. And then when you stand up, it's exactly the same. When you sit down, it's exactly the same. So now we're comfortable navigating the whole neck. We're comfortable standing for an extended period of time. And we're comfortable sitting for an extended period of time. And we can easily go from sitting to standing without changing our posture, without changing how we want to interact with the guitar whatsoever. And so overall comfort when you're playing the guitar and moving through different aspects of your playing, seated, standing for a long period of time, so on, navigating the neck. The Strandberg and headless guitars in general, I just feel like they're great for that. Now, another aspect of this and related to weight and just overall comfort is the idea, of course, the idea of traveling with a guitar. I mentioned this many times. You've seen it on Instagram if you follow me on Instagram. But whenever I travel, be it for a weekend, be it for a month, to one city away or, across the country, wherever I go, I bring a guitar with me. And if you're traveling with a guitar, headless guitars are just easier. They're more compact, they're more lightweight. They fit in the overhead compartment on the plane. If you're doing public transportation on a train, it fits with you easily. Lightweight, compact, you understand that already. But the other aspect of this is just the idea of traveling to different rooms. So, I'm in my music studio office right here. I'm comfortable sitting on my music chair playing guitar. But if I want to go sit on the couch and watch some BJJ, a shout out if you're watching the PGF right now, but I can just go sit on the couch and play my guitar, noodle around and watch TV. And it feels exactly the same in terms of the posture. Now, think about that for 1 second. We need to really get into this point a bit more detailed. I believe that however you practice the guitar is going to impact how much you actually get out of that in terms of like what you're retaining. So I strongly believe if you practice guitar in one posture, all of your practicing doesn't translate to a different posture. And if you don't believe this is true, ask anyone who has spent their whole life seated and playing the guitar, ask them to stand up and play the guitar. They can still play. I'm not saying they have now zero talent, but if they had, 100 talent points sitting down for their whole life, when they stand up, they might only have 90 talent points. So to the average person, they sound exactly the same, but to the actual guitar player, and if you've been there, you understand this, you don't feel as confident and you don't play exactly the same way. And then if we translate that to, let's say, sitting on a couch, right? Sitting on a couch, you might go from 100 talent points to 65 talent points because the posture is so different. And that's why you wouldn't want to do your serious practicing on a couch because it feels so different than what you're going to feel like when you're actually performing, right? But what if every time you picked up the guitar, standing, seated, waiting for a train, sitting on a couch, what if all of your practice time always felt exactly the same to your performance or to your recording studio or whatever you're doing with your musical life? All of a sudden, all of your efforts get translated to real results for you. And I just noticed that. I noticed that when I stay with a headless guitar for a long period of time, I never feel like anything that I'm doing is wasted. When I pick up a parlor guitar, for those of you who don't know, a parlor guitar is like an acoustic guitar, small body, like 3/4 scale. You just pick it up, you play a couple cowboy chords, and it's just kind of a fun thing you can do sitting on the couch. But when you play a parlor guitar on the couch, what you're doing is not really translating to your full guitar potential you have on your normal instrument. But you can also play a headless guitar on the couch, and all of your time translates 100%. So that's another thing that I really love about it. And the last thing that I want to mention is actually, well, I'll just say it. There are less options with headless guitars. If you want to go and buy a Strat style guitar, you can go to Fender or Squier, whichever. You can get the Schecter Nick Johnston, which is basically just a Strat. You can get the PRS SC whatever, John Mayer signature model, which is basically just a Strat. We could do this all day. If you can go to Ibanez and get their AZ whatever, which is a Strat. If you want to play a Strat, you have every guitar company on the planet except for Gibson you can choose from to get a particular Strat. Dozens and dozens and dozens of options. If you want a headless guitar, instead of having dozens of options, you maybe have 10 options if you are trying to stay in a reasonable budget. And then once you get into the idea of, let's just say you like single coil pickups. Let's just say you like single coil pickups. Well, headless guitar, decent price, single coil pickups. Ibanez, Stramberg, Kiesel. You got 3 options now. And honestly, it might take you a year to try every traditional style Strat on the market today. It'll only take you a few months to try a Kiesel, a Stramberg, and an Ibanez and figure out which one you like. And although I kind of made my name on YouTube with trying a bunch of guitars, and I'm still going to continue to do that because it's so freaking fun and I love it. When it comes to actually playing the guitar and improving in my own music and developing methods for teaching other people music, I'm not going to be switching between a billion different guitars every day. It's just not feasible. It slows the process down and so on. So if you want to get serious about your guitar playing, the most important thing you can do is start to develop a real practice habit. And in my opinion, the best way to have a practice habit on the guitar is going to be to do it consistently. That's what habit means. And the easiest way to do that, for me at least, is with a headless guitar for the reasons that I explained in this video. So, yeah, there's very few drawbacks for all of these advantages. In fact, the drawback that I can think of, the only one is that you have to tune down at the bridge. But a lot of headless guitars have really great tuning stability because there's just less material to go out of tune. And it's not that big of an adjustment to tune at the bridge. So you have all these strengths, very few weaknesses. I just think that you should give headless guitars a try. So yeah, of course, if you're a studio musician, you're going to need your Strat and your Les Paul and yada, yada, yada. That's all cool, and I have solutions for that as well that I will talk about with you eventually. But for day-to-day practice, day-to-day music, day-to-day education, for me, pretty sure it's going to be headless. At least it will be headless until the next video that I make saying that I changed my mind again. So until then, I'll talk to you soon. If you like these types of talks and you want me to bring them back like this, let me know in the comments, please, and I'll do it. See ya.